So for young filmmakers, what is your best piece of writing advice to give them?
Writing advice. I would say...
Hello, this is me trying not to have a panic attack, and this is Richard Linklater, who, if you didn't know, happens to be the coolest, nicest, chillest guy you will ever meet. I really want to share the conversation we had with you guys, but first, some context. If you could hypothetically look inside my brain, you'd see that I'm an absolute mess. I try to hold on to as many memories, ideas, and experiences as I can, but I am terrible at organizing them. I usually get lost in here, although there is one thing I make sure I can always find. I'm inspired by a lot of different stuff. Paintings, drawings, YouTube, photography, books, music, and most of all, movies. Out of all the directors I've watched, my favorite happens to be a self-taught filmmaker from Texas, just like me. Richard Linklater.
Studio execs get paid a lot of money to make these pronouncements, but it's just not...
It's not true. I never believed it when they say, oh, everything's about stakes in the screenplay. The stakes are, oh, if he doesn't get that, then he'll not achieve this, and, here come all the plot points. I'm like, what are the stakes? It's like you're alive,
Filmmaker Richard Linklater helped spark the emergence of independent film in the 1990s with Slacker, Dazed and Confused, Before Sunrise, and Suburbia. Joining me now, Richard Linklater.
Thanks for having me. A lot of my films, I'll come out in a minute, are very autobiographical. I have a pretty deep connection to everything I do.
For me, it's just about people, stories.
Well, as a filmmaker, I kind of look at the whole world as a potential movie, and I'm just working from a personal place.
Well, you see, storytelling is a real art. You can take the real world, but then fashion it into a really compelling story. That's the talent.
Rick is not looking through Hollywood's eyes. He doesn't care how Hollywood sees him.
Honestly, I feel like Rick is probably the best person on the planet in terms of working with actors.
Rick was the first guy that sort of really, believed in me.
And he has a real enthusiasm, interest.
I don't know. I don't get work. I don't. For me, filmmaking's not even a job. It's not a career or a job. It's just something that I'm doing.
There's nothing about Rick that's ugly. He doesn't have an ugly bone in him.
I think the main job of a director is to see the greatness in others and bring that out.
Whenever I'm feeling burnt out and uninspired, I like to go on a walk. And to be honest, I've been going for a lot of walks lately. This whole year, I've just been feeling so lost. You see, I've always wanted to tell stories on YouTube. Video essays, vlogs, tutorials, music videos, documentaries, ASMR. As a filmmaker, I am fascinated by every genre on this platform because it's just people sharing stories or becoming characters in their own story. But I don't know if I have anything new to share. Every time I tried to write down an idea, it always seemed bland, boring, and unoriginal. I was ready to give up, but then something happened that changed everything. Netflix invites you to the movie premiere of Hitman. We're excited to give you the opportunity to meet and interview the director Richard Linklater. If you choose to accept...
No, I don't buy it.
What?
You're not a hitman. You can't be.
This is serious.
I tried looking you up, but nothing. It's like you don't even exist.
I guess I'm just your fantasy.
So what's the biggest difference between the real you and your occupation?
By the way, my name is Gary Johnson, and I'm a fake hitman.
Sounds lovely.
Okay, Daniel Day.
In that moment, I had never felt more inspired. One small problem. I have terrible social anxiety.
Having to meet new people already makes me super nervous, but interviewing someone this important to me, someone who's literally my hero.
I need to do this, but it is physically impossible. I feel sick. What if I ask him a question that he's already heard a million times, and he's like, ugh, not this question again. I don't want to be that guy. Aren't you supposed to have like press training for this kind of stuff? Like what is the interview etiquette? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a fraud. There's no way. I can barely talk to a camera. I don't even know how I'm supposed to talk to him. There's no way. I am parked outside the location for the interview. I feel good. I'm ready. You know, yeah, we prepared for this. I'm fine. I'm ready. I'm so nervous. Oh my God. The interview took place in Austin, Texas, May 15th. Our conversation was approximately 15 minutes long. I had 4 weeks to prepare. Hitman Files, entry number 1. As I begin my research, there's only one place I have to go to find out everything I need to know. Good old Texas. Based on a true story written by Skip Hollandsworth for the Texas Monthly Magazine, starring Glenn Powell as Gary Johnson. Working with the police, Gary goes undercover as a fake hitman, but falls in love with one of his targets. Screenplay co-written by Glenn and runtime of 150 minutes, budget of 8.8. Described as genre bending, body weight, but a screwball comedy on the noir. Careful. There you go. That you go.
Oh, hey man.
Howdy.
How you doing?
All right, quiet, please. All around, quiet. Right there, Rafa. Right around there. Right
So,
here,
how you doing, man?
Good. Nice to meet you.
You too, man. What's going on?
Man, I just have to thank you for introducing me to Skip Hollandsworth because I used to love reading books, but social media has destroyed my attention span. But his articles are like the perfect length for me. So
yeah,
that was like
what
the
a
first
nose
thing.
for a true crime story. What a nose for unusual characters and situations.
Definitely.
And,
yes.
Yeah, I've been reading Skip for years, and you know I'm the only guy. I've now made 2 Skip Hollandsworth movies. I'm the only one.
I feel like he is so good at like turning nonfiction, like making it cinematic, and then
well, you see,
fiction.
storytelling is a real art. You can take the real world, but then fashion it into a really compelling story. That's the talent.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel like watching all your films. Like I can tell that there's something like very real and personal going into that, and so
usually
I was whenever I felt Glenn was like perfect for the role. When he came to you with the idea, did you already know that he was going to play Gary, or
yeah, I mean, I think talking to him, I was like, oh well, clearly he would play Gary. I mean, he's interested in it. My only concern was, could Glenn seem like a nerdy, not too charismatic guy, you know? And that was, you know.
I think he, yeah.
Oh, he does. He pulls it off.
No,
he pulls it off.
I don't think I've ever seen like an actor look like they're having so much fun while filming a movie. I mean, you could just tell that he was
I can
like
assure
having
you
such
of
a great
that.
time.
Glenn really went off the deep end with those, all the Hitman characters and personas. I mean, Gary did that to some degree. He did makeup. He would change himself a little bit, but Glenn just took that, and he was reading books on like, you know, body posture and walks and physicality and studying all those accents. Really, Glenn worked so hard. But the fact is, and the movie makes really clear, there aren't really these unaffiliated hitmen who have no connection. It's kind of ridiculous, and I've known this for years, and I've really kind of studied it from like a anthropological angle. I always read articles about people when they're arrested for soliciting a hitman. You know, that always gets the attention, but like, no one's ever arrested a hitman, you know? They're always arresting the person soliciting, so it's like,
I guess the good hitmen don't get caught.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. But it'd be so easy to entrap them if you think about it.
That's super true.
You know, and I don't know if it's good or bad for people to not know there's hitmen out there. Maybe that keeps us all in check.
I think so.
You know, that, you know, someone could be hiring a hitman to kill us at any moment, so maybe we should act a certain way. But and this film's not gonna make the hitman, this won't put a dent in the hitman genre.
I mean, I think it's a great contribution to the hitman genre.
It's a contribution, but
I'd say.
I think, yeah, every genre deserves its own deconstruction.
I thought it was so hilarious how your film premiered at the Venice Film Festival alongside David Fincher's The Killer. I just thought that was such a great
There were a couple
duo.
other hitmen. Michael Keaton in the movie.
Oh, really?
Woody Allen's new movie, they hire a hitman. Yeah. It was like, I showed up. You don't know. You show up at a festival, you don't really know the other films. You start doing interviews like, you're one of 4 hitman movies. And I'm like, 4 hitman? Okay, well, I'm kind of not a hitman movie. We're sort of
you're above that.
We're deconstructing the hitman. We're saying they're not real. And it was funny because we were based on like reality. Gary Johnson was a real guy. It's got its feet in the real world, and yet we were a comedy, you know. And the others were based on, you know, graphic novels, comics. You know, they're just pure fiction, and they were all pretty serious.
Yeah.
Pretty straight up.
I mean, yours gets a little serious from time to time, and I really, really like the way it just flows through different genres.
I love that feeling.
Yes.
To be not one thing. You know, you're just floating down the river, because your own life feels like that. Everything's going great, and then someone enters the room, it's like, oh, we're in danger here.
Yeah.
You find yourself like, oh, I'm painted in a corner. I wanted it to have that vibe, and by the end, it's truly walls closing in. You know, it's like edge of your seat thriller, which isn't usually stories I tell don't require that or need that, but if I was going to do it, I was going to do it. I really wanted to like take you there
100%
to the edge of your seat.
I just thought it was unique in a lot of different aspects, and I was curious is originality like something that you think about while working on the screenplay, or is that something you try to avoid thinking
That's a good
about?
question. You know, I don't. You know, you kind of wonder what is originality anyway. And so, for certain genres, you're like, can you do anything that hasn't been done? And I think the best you can maybe hope for is to like mash things up in a new way in this day and age, postmodern world. As a filmmaker, I don't want to make something I've seen, but you don't sit down. We need to be original. Everybody's trying to be original. You know, write an original song, ask an original question, you know, it's hard to do in this world. You got to be pretty methodical in your thinking and.
We'll do another 30 seconds.
Okay, and so I've got a pretty cliche last question, but. So,
an unoriginal question.
So, for young filmmakers, what is your best piece of writing advice to give them?
Writing advice. You know, I would say be more specific. That's a general question. Filmmaking's all about specificity. I think you just got to get into the details.
Okay.
That's a critique of your question,
yes.
But it's also kind of a metaphor for advice. You can't be general. It's got to be really specific. I don't know. Is that any good?
That's perfect. That's great.
Anyway, well, good talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Right,
I really appreciate meeting you.
You too.
Let's cut.
I think I did pretty good. There were so many cameras pointed at me and all this crew. I've never been around any of that before. Like that was my first time on like a real like set. And it was like I was so intimidated at first. my anxiety levels were so high walking into the diner, but once I sat down with him, he was like, what's up, dude? Or so he said something like,
oh, hey man.
He was just so chill. He like put me right at ease. I couldn't stop smiling. I was trying to be professional. I just locked in. I locked in, you know, which is all you can do. I feel great. I can't believe I was nervous. Now we're going to the Hitman premiere, and I'm gonna turn the AC on.
I'm not a film critic, and I might be slightly biased, but I thought this movie was great. I thought the story and the direction brought such a good performance out of Glenn Powell. He really got to shine in this movie, finally. I feel like we haven't even seen close to his full potential, and I'm just so excited to see what he does next. Similar to Adrian Arjona, I want to get it right.
And I am Adrian
Arjona? Anyway, she was just so good. She ties together the whole story, because if her character isn't likable or compelling, the whole plot just kind of falls apart. And she does it. She carries it. I have to say that this does stray away pretty far from the typical Linklater style. It feels very larger than life. It was a little off-putting because it didn't feel like him. But then as you get into it, you start to recognize all of his usual themes about passion and transformation and the beauty in real life. And that's when I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is Linklater. Like, this is the Linklater I know. This video is not sponsored, but obviously I couldn't have done this without Netflix. And I think you guys would really enjoy this movie. So if you have a Netflix account, definitely go check it out. I think it's pretty good. A cave in there. Thanks guys for watching my first YouTube video. I appreciate it. Thank you to Richard Linklater for being the coolest guy ever. And go watch Hitman. Go watch it. Peace.